Yeah, finally! Let's get our base Roman Chris here with your official Onigashima Sanji guide. He's a really solid unit. He's not the top of the top, but he's still a really good unit, and we're going to go over kind of the pros and cons of him, what makes him strong, what makes him weak, who he counters, and who counters him, as well as some medal suggestions at the end. I have tags on the video that you guys can skip to wherever you need to for whatever you're looking for. And if you guys could check out my Twitch, Twitter, and Discord, as well as my Reddit page, and go trash talk me, I would truly appreciate that, and I love y'all. If not, let's get into the video. So anyways, we're going to start with your stat builds and your what I would recommend for him. Now, given we are in a Gear 5 Luffy meta, there are some things that aren't going to be as good. So with defense stackers, which Sanji is, he stacks up to 50% of his defense buff. I'm not going to go over traits and skills right now, but if you look those over before you watch this video, it will help significantly into what I'm talking about. So he has 50% defense buff. The Gear 5 Luffy and a lot of other units in the current meta have ignored defense skills, so you need to watch out for those. So my first recommendation is to build full defense, so you have 70% defense is the cap for those of you who don't know, and if you have 18% access, then build full 18% attack as well. If you only have access to 14% right now and you're newer to the game, then try and focus on building 70% attack and then build defense as a secondary stat if you can. If you want to, and you have the extra resources, you can build a full HP and attack build, which will help you survive things like Gear 5s. It will make you squishier towards other units like fighting a Film Red Shanks or honestly fighting Big Moms. It will hurt you in certain other aspects when they're fighting defenders. HP is nice when you're fighting someone who has ignore defense, but if they don't have ignore defense, then you're going to want to stack defense because the 50% bonus that you get from your traits will make you a lot tankier than you already are. So just kind of what I'm going to go over. So my personal recommendation, if you have 18%, go full defense, full attack. If you don't have 18%, go with full attack, 70% attack, as well as however much defense you can stack on top of that. Now, if you want to, remember the extra credit, your other option is full HP and attack. That one I don't particularly recommend. It's not what I'm going to go with. I would probably go full attack defense on my Sanji. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's how I would play him. Just kind of makes you a lot tankier when you're fighting specific units. And yes, there will be people who ignore defense and it will crush you, but it works out and it's fine. So anyways, let's move on to the Sanji Pros. All right, for our Sanji Pros, what makes him good? Why is he viable in the meta? I would say he's solid. I wouldn't remember. He's not a monster, but you will be able to kill some things, but you will die for sure. You're not going to be an unkillable god, #1 attacker in the game. That is for sure. You're definitely not that. Anyways, what makes him good? You have a skill that ignores damage reduction. This is huge against a lot of defenders who stack a bunch overcapping 100% damage reduction, which doesn't make sense to you newer players, but between damage reduction and damage increase, it kind of balances out. So you do have a skill that ignores damage reduction on your skill 2. That is your biggest kind of like niche. That's what makes you so strong. You also have a heal on knockdown by like 15%, I believe. You have a heal on a status effect when you are inflicted with status effects, aka if you haven't caught on right now, you're built to fight Olin. Big Mom will get into that for who he counters in a little bit later on. You also have, you're the second character to have the color change element, Zoro being the first. You kind of change color in a different fashion, where Zoro changes colors where if he's hit using his skill 2, Sanji changes colors whenever he is knocked down by that person. So if you are knocked down by a red unit, you will turn blue when you get hit by them. So that's how that works. If you are already fighting a blue unit and you start off as green, then you're not going to be changing colors. Just keep that in mind. Another pro that you have kind of going for you is you have the ability to remove enemies dodge. This is actually one of the most underrated traits in the game. You use it on your skill 1, so even if the enemy has dodge, you can still use your skill 1 and hit them. You do have to be careful because they could just end up perfect dodging it, so be careful and use it wisely. Alright, next up we're going to go over the Sanji Cons. He has a lot going for him, but he also has a lot that's just not there for him. The first thing is stacking your skill 2. It's kind of going to take a while. Like, you have to hit 3 times, I believe, to get these stacks, which increases the damage by 20% on your skill 2 whenever you use it. So basically, when you're max stacked, it gets to 100% bonus damage. That basically means you're going to be doing double the damage than it normally would be. Now, it already hits really hard as it is, so you don't always need the stacks. Don't try and hold out on using your skill 2 until it's fully stacked. You will do a good amount of damage. If you know your enemies and you know the other characters' traits, you can kind of assume, oh, is this going to do a good amount of damage or not, and choose wisely on when you should use it. Next, even with your defense buffs, you're still very killable. You don't really have much damage reduction. If any, you only have the color advantage damage reduction from you changing color, if they are to change your color. So keep that in mind. You don't have much going for you in terms of staying alive. You have your defense buff and you have your healing, but if you have people who are ignoring defense, then they will crush you, and if you have people who have a bunch of damage increase against you, they will hurt you as well. So there's a lot of one-shotting in this game, unfortunately, and Sanji is kind of a victim of that as well. Next, there are also enemies who exist who do not knock you down. So if you're fighting someone like a green defender Treble, or if you are fighting someone like a red attacker Uta, they have a basic, on their basic button, their basic attack button, if they hit it twice, they will never knock you down. So Treble and Uta can both do this. You will be able to eventually dodge out of it, but they could potentially still hit you if you do not use your skills in order to get yourself out of that predicament. So watch out for that, because that will lead to you never being able to get your color change. You'll never get your heals unless you're attacking back. Just kind of some dangerous things to be wary of. Next up, you kind of suffer from Bounty Fresh Syndrome. Unfortunately, this is the thing now, whereas enemies can outplay you just because they have invincibility, and you do not. You are not invincible during your skill 1, you're not invincible during your skill 2, so you are completely hittable and killable during each of those. So you have no kind of get out of jail free card is what I like to call them. A lot of EX players will sit there, they'll waste their dodge because they suck, and then they'll end up just using their invincibility skill because they know they can and they know they will protect them, and it's kind of garbage, and it's not really fair to Bounty Fest or Step Ups. So kind of a curse. It is what it is. It's how the games become, and that's how it is. Okay, next up we're going to talk about what characters Sanji beats. If you hadn't noticed from his traits when reading through them, hopefully you've done that already by this time, Homeboy is basically designed to beat EX Olin Big Mom, the Red Defender. He is healing off status effects, which she inflicts a lot of status effects, which is a flame. He heals off, he ignores damage reduction, which she has a lot of it. She doesn't have any defense buffs or anything like that. So he is very capable of killing her. He is dangerous, and that is his #1, like, who he counters the most. Otherwise, other people that he counters is anyone with high damage reduction. There's kind of two types of defenders. You have the high damage reduction ones, and then you have the high defense stacking ones. So some are a little bit of a hybrid between, but most of the time they usually fall in one of those two categories and lean towards one or the other. So Sanji kind of beats those damage reduction ones. So you have people like Olin, you have people like that Raid Kid, the Red Defender, Captain Kid, is pure damage reduction. You have things, if you want to go way back, you have Bartholomew Kuma, Blue Defender, is all pure damage reduction. They have really high levels of it. Page 1 is really high levels of damage reduction. Things like that are some units that he would absolutely destroy. Other than that, you also, in terms of not defenders, you just status affect your units. So if you have Stampede Boa Blue Hancock, she's a blue runner one, she inflicts a lot of status effects, and she will heal you over and over. And Prospero, green attacker Prospero, will heal you with his candy effect. And then blue Uta, who's mainly damage reduction, also inflicts a lot of singe effect, so you'll probably demolish her as well. So there's a lot of characters that you can demolish. And unfortunately, these characters aren't played as much anymore because a lot of it is just filled with Gear 5. That's just how it is, and everyone saved their gems for him. Let's talk about the Sanji counters. Who counters him? Who destroys him? Actually, I wouldn't say there's any specific one. Well, there is one unit who absolutely destroys him, and that would be Who's Who. But Who's Who is designed to counter any of the Straw Hats, so he actually destroys a lot of them. So watch out for Who's Who. If you see that saber-toothed cat out there, try not to fight him, or try to only side check him. Don't directly approach him in a 1v1, because if he is smart, he will destroy you in a 1v1. So be careful of him. That's my one major watch out for him. Your next problem is potentially Film Red Shanks, just because I don't believe you have any way of removing his state, so he can just keep anti-staggering versus you. You have anti-stagger while you're above 70% HP, but I don't know if that's always going to save you, so just something of an issue there. Your next issue is also Gear 5 Luffy. He ignores defense on 2 of his skills, his big Bomba skill that he has for his first skill 2, and then his regular skill 2 that he has anytime he wants to use it. So remember, you are able to be shocked, so he can shock you out of your abilities, but it'll just be really short because you have an 80% reduction to shocks. So just watch out for those high damage champions. Gear 5 Luffy is here. He is running the meta, and he's something to be concerned about. You can kill Gear 5, but you're going to need to get him quick before his defense stacks are fully there, because you don't have anything that ignores defense. Next up, kind of how I touched on those people who can't knock you down. Treble. I doubt he'll run into them because no one really plays him, but someone like Treble or the Red Uta. Red Uta, I think you can actually fight a lot easier, but someone like Treble is a little more dangerous because he is immune to a lot of things. He has a 60% chance to perfect dodge for doing nothing while he's above 50% HP or whatever. So watch out for that, and he'll never knock you down and never change your color, so you're vulnerable there. Alright, next up, you guys, let's talk about some medal suggestions. I made one for Gear 5, and I wanted to make one for Sanji like this. So, overall, I think the kind of high damage increase, like the Dressrosa Luffy set, is probably one of the best. That middle Lucy event medal, you could replace that with whatever you need to fill that in. Even if it's a Wano Luffy, it won't be that bad. Sanji's cooldowns are really short, so if you only have the 14% cooldown on your skill 1 tag versus your 20%, it's not going to make too huge of a difference. Could, but most likely won't. So I generally would probably going to be using this high damage increase Dressrosa set. It's phenomenal. It's a really universal attacker set, and you get a large amount of damage increase on it as well. So Sanji just needs that damage increase so he can one-shot with that skill 2 because he ignores damage reduction. So that just flat damage increase will go a long way. Next up, there's that kind of Luffy set. You can mix and match that. The first two are event medals. Hopefully you got those. These are recent event medals. If you have not picked those up, then you can kind of sort through your... I would sort through Blood Brothers tags and kind of see what Luffy medals you can mix and match and which ones you have. Luffy medals are a really good place to start, especially if you're a newer player. Look around and see which ones you have. If you are newer, pink ones are event medals. They do not do reruns, so if you miss the chance to get them, you cannot get them. Golden ones are definitely achievable. You just have to own the character or play with the characters in order to get their fragments. Next up is the Katakuri one. Potentially easier to get. It does have that older event medal, but that one's a really good set as well. It offers good damage increase and a little bit of damage reduction as well, something that would go perfectly fine on Sanji. And the last one is Triple Boa set. This one, there is a colored medal in on there. That one does not change the way it works in any way, shape, or form. It's just for design and looks pretty. So great all-around set, gives you some good cooldowns. That Boa set is phenomenal. Was really actually... We used to beat the Luffy set originally, but now Luffy set's kind of caught back up to the Boa set. So those are some overall generic base sets. If you want to toy around and make a niche set that is specific to Sanji, you could do that, but these are actually sets that would be really worth building because you can use them on many other attackers as well. That's how I like to build my metal sets, so I would recommend the same for you. Build your metal sets to be playable on as many characters as possible, not always specifically just that one character. Unless it's your all-time favorite character, then I would say it's worth it. But if you just like Sanji and you just want to play him, but you want to build a set that's going to be usable on other characters, I would recommend any of these. Will be usable on almost any other attacker, should be just fine on them. So that's my overall guide. I hope you guys enjoyed this guide. Hopefully it was useful. Let me know if there's anything you guys would change, or if there's any other medals that you guys would suggest, or if I missed anything in general. I will be sure to add it to my pinned comment down in the description or the comments below. So let me know if I missed anything. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate your time, and be sure to check out my Twitch, Twitter, and Discord once again. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I hope y'all have a fantastic night, morning, evening, whatever time it is for y'all. I'm your boy Roman Puss, and I'm taking off. Yeah, holy peace, beautiful people.